Welcome back to the arena. We are in the arena
here
today with Jaxon McClure. He
me.
has a man of many nicknames, a.k.a. the real recruiter on LinkedIn,
Yes,
a.k.a. BDJ amongst many men around Chattanooga,
that's true.
a.k.a. what else?
Cadillac Jax.
Cadillac Jax.
You know, and the most famous of all, Spank.
Spanky was
My
way
nickname.
back in the day. Here's a good one, and you might have seen this online. Circa 2015, the hot singing Marine.
Oh, God.
Jaxon
Oh,
had
God.
one of the most super viral Facebook videos of him singing. Where were you?
I was in Japan, and the wild thing is I didn't even post it. It got taken off my Twitter off of a reply, and it went, I don't know, 13 plus million views. No, 30 plus million views.
30 plus million in like 2 days.
Yeah, in
It
2
was
days.
crazy.
That was the weird part about it. And so I started walking around Japan because I was stationed out there, and I was going to the chow hall or going outside, and random people were walking up and like, "You him? Are you?" I'm like, "Oh my God, what just happened?" A lot of people back home giving me calls like, "You blew up overnight. What just happened?" Miracles happen, is what I say.
Miracles happen. Wait, give a little bit of the backstory. So you were a Marine,
Yeah.
and you were inviting someone
Yeah,
to
I
a
was
dance.
inviting. So, long story short, like every year, there's somebody in the military that basically asks a celebrity to go to the ball with them. And we were in Japan at the motor pool one day, and a lot of people were sitting there like, well, if anybody can do it, Jackson's loud. Like, just let him do it. Just try it. So we went out to the motor pool. They threw me a flak jacket, and they're like, man, make this video, because I was the only one that would do it. And we did it. And it wasn't, again, like I said, it wasn't too serious. It was kind of just like, let's throw it out there.
Can we get a sample? What did it sound
No,
like?
God, don't.
Who
do
was
this
it?
right
Brian McKnight's song?
It was a Brian McKnight song. Shout out Brian McKnight. Shout out Brian McKnight Jr. And so Back at One was the song, classic, one of my all-time favorites. But anyways, we took the video and we posted it on Twitter because we were just kind of messing around, replying to Tori Kelly. And long story short, overnight it blew up, and celebrities and all kinds of news channels all over the globe were posting this.
You woke
And
up with like 50,000 Instagram followers.
yeah,
right?
I woke up with 30,000 more Instagram followers than I did the night before.
It's crazy.
And most of them being from all over the world and not even the United States, because it went to the Japanese news because it was posted in Japan. It was wild. So wild time in my life.
So I think there's a common thread here.
What's
I
that?
think this is actually why you've gotten into recruiting and why
Mhm.
you're good at it.
Yeah.
Because you're not shoot or shoot. You're not afraid to take your shot with
Right.
someone that you might not have any direct connection with,
Right.
like Tori Kelly.
Yeah, yeah. It was all, I mean, like I said, it was all kind of a joke. It wasn't very serious, but they just knew, like, if anyone's going to be able to do it, hey, you're going to try it. So we tried it. It didn't work out. It was actually, she was singing with Michael Bublé that night. You know, whatever. Me, Michael, whatever.
A little
But
braggadocious
anyways,
of her.
yeah, it was great, though. So it was cool. Again, it was just all kind of a joke, but it ended up turning into a big life-changing thing for me when it comes down to social media, connecting with individuals, and kind of got me into the recruiting space. So I'm super grateful for that. And it was embarrassing, still kind of is, but it really led up to a lot of good things.
So this is fun to kind of rewind. 2015, this happens. Jackson's in San Diego area. I'm in the LA area. We had grown up playing soccer together,
Yeah.
and then reconnected out there right when Jackson's, going super viral. And we start hanging out, talking about saying, one day it'd be super fun to do something together, more entrepreneurial. I think both of us didn't like the idea of just corporate America and doing that whole thing. Real quick, what are you drinking?
Oh, excuse me. Celsius. I love you. This
First
is
Celsius drinker ever that I know.
I think so, to be honest, and I'm not trying to be that guy here, but I used to grab this off of the shelves of the PX on base, circa probably 2017, 16, something around there, and they were hot. They weren't cold, and I always looked for the grape. It sat beside the soups in the PX, and I would throw this in my cargo pocket and drink one every single day. And I thought it was God's gift to earth. And so since then, I've tried working with them. I got to work with them for a little while. I don't know how healthy like 2 or 3 of these are a day, but I'm addicted for years.
Yeah, I think it might be a good alternative for coffee for recruiters. It gives. I want to think it's
Yeah,
healthy.
seriously, right? It
I
says it
think there's
burns
some
body
vitamins
fat.
in there.
It says burns body fat, might burn brain cells too.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. Big Celsius fans over here.
Big fans.
But yeah, so 2015 we reconnect. We start dreaming. Lots of moments. Neither of us had much expendable income, if any. Trying just to find time on the weekends to talk through ideas and bring other people in. I remember that was the thing. Like, hey, who else can we talk to these ideas about? And it was really fun for me. I got into the recruiting space in 2017, and then I always had Jaxon in mind as someone like that I thought had recruiting DNA. Like, don't have to there's no undergrad degree for recruiting, right? Like, there's literally, and there's no industry-wide certification or licensing. It's literally like, do you have a personality? Do you have a LinkedIn?
Do you have an influence too on people? I think that's a big thing. Not a social media influence, but just when you walk into a room, do people gravitate towards you or do they want to walk away? I think that's a big thing that I try to leave everyone with, like wow, that was pretty fun. He's loud, obnoxious, but it's a good time, right? And so I think that recruiting was definitely for me. I think that when I saw you doing it, I was like, man, this is the opportunity that I want. It just had to come when it needed to come, though. I needed to get my feet wet in the industry of sales or something. These are things that I love to do, as we know. We'll get into that. But I think a lot of sales is in recruiting too, but a lot more, instead of transactional, it's so much more relational.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's definitely what I'm about.
Influence is a good word. I'm going to look up this quote while we're talking because I think it'll tie into that.
Cool.
But I'd love to hear for you just a quick, because we're asking people this all the time as recruiters. Tell me your career story.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your 2-minute career story.
Yeah.
Kind of how you got, because I think there's some similarities from playing soccer growing up.
Yeah, I'll get into that.
Team,
for sure.
And how we got here.
Yeah, so soccer was our lives, right? I mean, I think that this is where we spent most of our time. If it wasn't at school, it was on the pitch. That's where we were. And again, as a little kid, I've always been like that one that's the talkative guy and the loud one in the room. But, there was something about leadership that I really enjoyed to an extent. I still was very immature in those years, but
you're pretty immature.
I'm still pretty immature. But what we got into, so soccer was kind of like my gateway. I wasn't a big fan of school. Pretty obvious about that. Got into college. Well, I got injured, got to college, I got offered a scholarship, thank God. I got there, I was 17 years old, and I was like,
young.
Yeah, I was very young. I got there and started playing in the NAIA, and there is tons of just older Europeans, Africans, Hispanics, etc., guys that have been playing for 10 years longer than me. So I thought I was still in high school, could do all these moves and everything, get jammed up, and I was like, man, this is rough. But fast forward, I got through the season a little bit, and I was like, I've been given a God-given ability. My parents were paying for everything, when it came to a car and gas and all these things. And I was like, have I ever really worked for anything? Like, I wasn't putting on, besides practice, was I doing anything outside of practice on my own? And so that kind of transition, I went to a wedding, saw some dude getting married, and I didn't know him, and he came in with swords, and I was like, who in the world is this guy? I want to be him. Like, this looks cool. So found out he's a Marine, came out with his Marine stuff, and then I come home, and about 2 to 3 days later, I signed the dotted line. I was like, sign me up. I want whatever. To be a Marine. I was like, I want whatever that guy's got. The respect, the hard work, all the little details that goes into being a Marine. So I signed that and told my parents, and they weren't very happy. Go figure. Felt
shout
like
out to Chris.
Yeah, shout out to Big Al and Chris. And so that happens. I go to boot camp, whatever. Life changed. It's everything is different. Life is different. Nothing's given to you. Everything's earned, right? From sleep to respect. I think that's something you earn. So get in there, loved it to an extent, as much as you can love.
But that was like, I remember talking to you the first couple times, and it was like discipline was the word. Like, you're waking up early, you're running until you couldn't run anymore.
It's the best, worst time of my life is how I look at it. Like, I would do it all over again, but now that I know what I got myself into, but I met the best relationships in my life. Shout out Jesse. Love you, boy.
Jesse.
So anyways, I think that leadership still plays into the Marine Corps a ton. That's what we value. And so I grew a lot in different aspects. Still was young, still was immature, still learned a lot, still messed up a lot. But then, obviously I connected with you. And that's where really a big life change happened, and that's the truth. I think that I got to connect with an individual that I looked up to, that I called Big Bro, that I knew my whole life. You and your brother Builder, shout out B. And, I think that I got to hang out with you a lot and just kind of see what you were doing, see what you were building, the grind. The first apartment, it was rough.
It was rough.
Very rough. The long drive to work, and I was like, man, I want a family one day. I kept looking at you saying, man, I want a kid. I want a kid.
That a lot, yeah.
A lot. I was like, I want to be a dad. And so anyways, I saw you got into recruiting, and then I came and visited. I was staying at your house, like on the floor every weekend. Let's just keep it honest. I slept on the floor. I kept the floor warm over there.
Barracks.
Oh yeah. And just hustling a lot on the weekends. Like I'm definitely, I think hustlers in my DNA. I live and breathe that. I love sales. I love flipping anything and everything.
Well, just to give everyone an idea,
Yeah.
It's been sneakers.
Mhm.
Like I saw you when you were a kid. You'd find sneakers, you'd wear them, you'd flip them.
Cleats.
Yeah.
And
Now,
yeah. Well,
Cadillacs.
it got into vintage was what really got hot. I think vintage is, and this was years ago still. I mean, now vintage, they got vintage retail stores and all these other things like selling these clothes for $50 a t-shirt, right? For a 90s, 80s t-shirt, whatever. And this was back when it was cool, but it wasn't this cool. And we were like hustling these t-shirts, man, pants, shorts, anything I could get. And I was doing that early every Saturday morning at the market, and Sunday mornings, and the Rose Bowl, all these different places.
That.
The Rose Bowl is the mecca.
Jaxon took me shopping in LA at the Grove first time. I had all my pants were super baggy. They were probably Carhartts because I was born and raised in Tennessee. And he was the first person to show me what a fitted shirt felt like, what actually tailored pants were.
Yeah.
Skinny
Look
jeans.
at his shirt now. Now look at this man.
We've come a long way.
Come a long way,
I think
brother.
I bought the fun pants, which will be featured at some point with Jaxon. So
yes, the fun pants have to be featured. But so we did the shopping, we did all that, and he got to see kind of behind the scenes of I hustle the Marine stuff, got to do what you got to do. And then as soon as work's over, boom, I'm headed to LA. Like, because it's like we're the city of dreams, right?
Yep.
Or the city of angels, or whatever you want to call it. But it really is like a dream city. A lot of people move there because there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of failure. You learn to get up and fall down. You get up. And so for me, it was a big growth. I met, again, I'm into networking. This is how we get into recruiting. So I met a ton of people throughout these stores, just walking around aimlessly studying these garments that I couldn't afford, but was like, one day I'm gonna figure this out.
Like $2,000 t-shirts and stuff.
Yeah, like ridiculous
There's
stuff.
some boutiques in LA that are just mind-blowingly expensive, but what I saw you do is whether I've seen you talk to so many professional athletes. The one that jumps out to me is D'Angelo Russell. Ran into him, NBA superstar, and
ice in my veins.
Ice in my veins, like, iconic. Yeah, iconic.
Yeah, that was like soon after that happened.
And dang it, and he literally Jaxon literally talked to D'Angelo like they had been boys their whole life.
Yeah, he was in Urban Outfitters.
Urban Outfitters, and it was just for me. I just saw that as like, oh, Jackson's gonna treat him like a person.
Yeah.
And is going to assume the friendship, find a way to connect genuinely.
Right.
And not treat him like a fan. And to celebrities, and similarly to like leaders in business or any sphere, if you treat them, if you assume the friendship and you try to add value as a friend, it goes such a long way.
Well, I think people want a friend, not a fan.
Yeah.
Right. I think that they have enough fans. These guys, they want to be heard. They want to be seen in different ways that aren't like just catching a football or hitting a 3-point shot or scoring a cool goal. I think that's cool and all, but at the end of the day, they're younger than us or same age as us or maybe a little bit older, but end of the day, the only thing different is a bank account, right? And so for me, I love connecting with individuals that a lot of people are like, bro, there's no reason for you to do that. Like, how did you do this? Or he's never going to talk to you, whatever. It's like, he's a regular dude like us, right?
Well, yeah, and you would have it. I remember so many times where then the celebrity or whoever would reach out to you.
Yeah.
And they would want to continue the conversation because you piqued their interest. You made the connection. This quote. I just dropped my phone because
But
I'm the
it
most
felt
clumsy
genuine,
person.
right? That's what I think a lot of it is about.
But yeah, here's the quote that I think is at the heart of what you do. It says, this is a classic. It says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So it really is that feeling thing that people hold on to when you enter the room.
Yeah.
That what's that feeling people get? And I feel like that, what I've seen in you is that's something that you were born with, but you figured out how to apply that specifically in different ways.
Yeah.
And in recruiting, it's been cool to watch you go from the like flipper mentality of how can I buy this and sell it for a profit, to more of this idea. We'll talk a lot about the infinite game, which is Simon's next idea of like, how do I stay in this game of business and add value and build trust with people that I want to be in partnership with. And like, that's different than the flipper mentality. I've actually learned a ton from you about that, because businesses have to be profitable. You have to see the margin game.
Of course.
But then it's like, how do you stay in the game for the long term beyond some of those transactional moments to build like 50-year relationships?
Right.
Where like you can do contracts on a handshake with hundreds of people.
Yeah, I think that's so important, man. Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you. For sure.
But it's been cool. I feel like that's been part of our, like, the fun working together is I've learned a lot from you about the hustle, the quick twitch, pick up the phone, call someone, find how to add value. And then I feel like on the flip side, like, you know me, I can move slower and sometimes a little bit more organized. I'm not super organized.
Oh, you're way more organized.
Way more organized.
You saw
than
I have 22,000 emails that are unread in my.
I don't know how you do that.
It's sad. Let's check and see.
Is it really 22,000?
22,700.
Yeah, that's wild.
Bad.
I think I'm at 300.
I wouldn't call me the most organized recruiter. For me though, like piggybacking off of what you said though, I think there's two different mindsets, right? Yeah, there's a hustle mentality. We got to make money on this, right? However, I think what's most important is that relationship and being genuine about it, not faking being genuine. That's very easy to read when someone's like faking the funk and all that. I think that creating it, because that business will come right back eventually. Maybe they don't like their job in 2 years. Boom. You got the same person that you made feel really good and you thought you found home, and boom, maybe it just didn't work out. And now you can go back and work with them again and try to find them, their next spot. I think that's a big part of recruiting is the reoccurring, the residuals.
Yeah. Let's do a really quick role play of what that can feel like on a candidate call. I think this will be interesting to people. So like, I'll be the recruiter, you be the candidate for the first one.
Cool.
I'm going to show you how a lot of like traditional transactional recruiting is done and how there's none of that like genuine connection. Move my phone. Oh, yes. I'll pick up my phone.
A little role play action.
Here you go.
All right, let's do it.
Ring, ring.
Domino's
Jaxon.
Pizza. Oh, sorry. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. I'm doing well. The weather's been a little bit rough here, but we're getting through it. Thank goodness it's Friday.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So anyway, so you're good?
I'm doing good.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to tell you about this job. Here's the pitch. Go straight into it. There's like a little bit of a connection, but it's all stock. Like,
oh yeah.
Right. Now let's flip it. Act like you are the recruiter. I'm the candidate, and we haven't rehearsed this, so I'm curious where you go with it. But you've looked at my LinkedIn profile.
Right.
That's it. You reached out. You know my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Here's
what I'm going to correct first before we even get into that. My new thing is we're going to Zoom. I want you to see me, and I want to see you.
That's good.
Because, boom, we have human interaction now, right? And it's like I can see you. I can see how you're thinking. You can read eyes pretty well. When I'm in an interview, I'm conducting pre-screens and different types of interviews now. Whenever I'm in an interview, I definitely just kind of look at what the person's doing. I think that their body language, you can tell if they're really interested or not. And then you can also, as a recruiter, show real interest on, man, I'm in my office. Look at it. Like, I'm in Chattanooga. Look outside. Let's talk. Like, I think that is a huge part in even just the first call. Because I remember when I first started at my new company, I would be on, calls and it just, you can't see them. So you don't know what's going on, right? They're not in a controlled environment. They're not sitting down in front of the computer. It's kind of like a quick sales pitch, and I hope to God you hop on. And it's on their side. It's I hope his pitch is really good so I can hop on. Or it's
let
very
me get through
timid.
this script to get the answers I need to push them to the next step.
And so I think that being on Zoom, they're not looking at their phones like half.
Yeah.
You know, looking at it, you're not looking up answers or Googling stuff or on Instagram. It's me and you are having a direct conversation.
And I think one of the biggest skills and why that's so valuable now, and this is funny to say because I feel like when I was a kid, people bragged all the time about being able to multitask.
Yeah.
I think now it's more of a skill to be able to single task.
Oh, God,
and if you're on Zoom, like you said, you have to be more present there. I'm not going to be on my phone texting while you and I are right here. And it's kind of the same there. I love that correction. I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think that's a big a game changer in recruiting. I think a lot of people are in the hustle and bustle, and by all means, do your thing. You know, if that's what pays the bills, sweet. But my thing is, if you want long-term business, little things like making a Zoom call instead and making them use their camera and not allowing them not to, but being like, hey, I really want to see you so we can connect. That's how, and it's in a controlled environment, like I said, not in some loud coffee shop. Like, let's just make it me and you here so we can talk. And I really want to get to know, hey, what are you looking for rather than what I'm trying to pitch you? And then we can get into the questions, right? I think the questions and everything is cool, but a lot of recruiters get on calls or a Zoom call, and they're like, hey, how you doing, Hudson? Okay, so tell me about a time that you, it's like, okay.
All right, let's run it. Let's run the role play.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the recruiter or the candidate?
I'll be the candidate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I'm gonna
So
let
now
you're the king
now
of
I'm on
recruiting.
Zoom. I'm
Yeah.
not answering my
Okay,
phone.
hold on. I'm gonna do this.
I don't know how to make the Zoom noise.
It's okay. It's all good.
Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Hey,
Jackson, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Celsius.
Oh, I love Celsius.
Yeah.
And is that a tattoo?
That's a few of them.
Man, tell me, what's your favorite tattoo?
The one of my grandfather.
Grandfather. So he's had a big influence on you?
Huge one. A huge influence.
That's really cool. Can I see it a little
Yeah, you can see it. Look at
Oh, that detail is crazy.
Isn't
Who's
it
the
wild?
artist that did it?
His name's Alan. He's in San Clemente, California.
Oh, man, that's really cool.
Absolutely.
I just got my first tattoo. It's really small and not nearly that cool, but it made my wife think I was cooler. So
Hey, every tattoo, big or small, should mean something.
you got to start
right?
somewhere.
You got to start. But next time I see you, Hudson, you're going to have a neck tattoo and a
Neck
full sleeve.
tattoo. Well, I'm here to be influenced as well. Try to convince me. So,
Right?
Jackson, I'm so excited about this. I want to make sure that I took the time to get to know you as well as possible from LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is just going to give me a little bit of insight into who you are. But I saw you're a Marine. I want to say thanks for your service.
Hey, I appreciate that, Hudson.
I know that from the Marines I know, that can be an incredible character builder, and I really appreciate it. And then it looks like you've done some really cool things in recruiting that I'm excited to dig into. So we could probably talk for 10 minutes just about small talk and slowing down and connecting. And even if it's 2 minutes and it's the drink and the tattoo and one thing from their background.
Yeah.
That is a differentiator.
For sure. And like, I try now to do my due diligence before each call. I used to be in the hustle and bustle and think, man, I just want to get my feet wet here in recruiting, but it's really transitioned into a relationship. And like, because here's the thing, if you're doing internal recruiting, let's just say you're doing internal and I'm talking to you, and let's say if I show I don't really care and you accept the job, it's kind of like, there's Jackson, But now my candidates are like, hey, Jackson, shooting me slacks. I hope you have a great day, man. Just checking in. And like, I check on them. And then you get to be excited when they get promoted and all these different things that, I've gotten to see a bunch of people that I've brought on to get to the next level and go from mid to senior or senior to lead. And that's exciting for me as a recruiter. I'm not getting paid on it, but it's really awesome as an individual to cheer on other people that you genuinely care about, right? So yeah, I think the due diligence part in the beginning is don't just say, hey, let's book a meeting, hit my little Calendly link or whatever, and just hop on and not know anything about them. Do a little bit of digging. Even if their LinkedIn isn't decked out, find out where they went to college, talk about it. Like, do you know anybody there? Do you have any mutual connections? Little things go a long way.
Yeah, and believing you can find the connection, getting comfortable in the space. You'll have comments that don't land well.
Yeah.
What if Jackson's like, I'd rather not show my tattoo? that would probably put me on my heels for a minute. But you get comfortable with that. You get
well, I mean,
comfortable
I've
working.
had people tell me when I say like, "Oh, do you have any kids?" They're like, "I don't want to say that." It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, I mean, I have a 4.5-year-old and I love him to death. So
Yeah.
hey, that's all I really wanted to know.
Yeah.
Just see if we could connect on that side. And but I had a really good conversation with a candidate yesterday in St. Pete, and I'm interested in Florida. I think Florida is a really cool spot to live. And so we talked for 20 minutes about what it's like living in Florida, where to go, where not to go, schools, all that stuff. And it's like, okay, hey, I know this is supposed to be for an interview, but this was really fun. Great to know you. And it made the interview go so much better because he felt very timid in the beginning. And then we started talking about it, and it was like he was relaxed. He was saying man and like just talking to me like a normal guy, right? And because interviews can feel so 1990s. It's like, hey, I'm Hudson Brock. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's
Here's
too much.
the agenda for our call.
Yeah.
It's going to be 3
Exactly.
different steps. Yeah, I think part of the beauty of a recruiting screen is it's not an interview. It can be for internal, and obviously, like now you're internal. I'm still on the agency side, so there's some nuances to that. But I think that part of the recruiter's job is to connect on a level where the candidate knows I am in your corner. Like we talked about being allocentric for AlloHire. Being others-centered can mean helping them identify that it's not the right job for them.
Right.
And that means disarming the, hey, you need to impress me to get to the next step of the interview, and more so like, hey, I'm in your corner as a human, and I want to help you explore whether this or another opportunity that I'm connected to in my network can help you, your family, or just your lifestyle level up in whatever your priorities are. And so you have to build that trust to understand who the person is and what their priorities are. If you do that, the close when they get the offer is actually really smooth most of the time. If you don't, if you try to just kind of get through next step, you can get to the close and realize you don't really know the person, you don't really know their motives, and you don't ultimately know if it's the right opportunity. So even if they do take the job, they might only be there 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of uncertainty there, Like, well, I know they got an offer, but I don't really know them. And then you have, of course, your team asking you, hey, how do they feel about it? But you never did the due diligence in the beginning to really get to know them. So you feel like really pushy, or you come off as, sign this because I get paid, right?
Yeah,
Sign this.
yeah.
And that's the last thing you want, right? So, yeah, I think it's very important from the beginning. Like, quit jumping ahead to, oh, this is a great candidate. Like, they're going to get it. Let's talk and make sure. And if it's not, let's figure out a way to toss them maybe to other recruiters we know. That's something that you do well, is not giving away business, but just helping individuals. I mean, if giving away business is what it's classified, sure. But what I think that you do well is create relationships that are genuine and place people where they need to go instead of where you want them to go. There's so many times where you'll be like, hey, I have like 5 candidates that would fit a role that I saw on your company's page, and I didn't even ask you about it. But you're like, I think that's so important. That's the foundation of recruiting, I think, in order to be successful.
Yeah. Gary Vee talks about marketing, like give away value up front for free. I think it's the same thing. I think if you genuinely want to advocate for candidates, you don't care as much if you get paid.
Right.
Especially once you start to do well, that you realize there's plenty of money to be made. And that if you do free work, like my goal is to do 1 free placement a quarter. If I do that, then I feel like I'm doing well. And I know that those candidates are going to appreciate it to where in 5 years when they're founders, hiring managers, whatever, they're going to be stoked to either come back to me for their next placement when all of a sudden, oh, now that's a big time hire, big time fee attached, or I'm hiring, I want to work with you. So I think if you think about it again as like the infinite game, 10, 20, 30, 40-year thing, there's so much reciprocity versus in this quarter, I have to hit this quota. So I need a hustle to get this one person this job. And sadly, a lot of agencies and internal recruiting teams are so metrics driven with kind of arbitrary hiring goals from investors or C-suite that you just lose that. So I think that's what's cool about the agency side, and the right companies like Very where you work, you kind of get that nurturing talent, bring them in to share what you're doing, whether they get the job or not.
Yeah, it's something cool about Very too. You didn't really ask this, but I've gotten to do mainly like Latin American hires now. I mean, yes, we hire, of course, in the U.S., but getting to connect
offshore.
Yeah, but it's so cool to try to relate to someone that's not even from the same country as you. You know, like getting to speak to people from Argentina or Uruguay or Colombia. A lot of our team at Very, I think there's like 30 plus people from Colombia.
Wow.
And it's a game changer, and it's so fun. People are like, hey, the company's like, fly to Colombia and see your team. I mean, that stuff's awesome. So yeah, I think that's recruiting has been awesome.
Yeah.
Really
I gotta ask you one story question.
Yeah, come on.
So Jaxon was my first hire when I was kind of laying the foundation for AlloHire. This is January of 2020. Crushed it. January 2020, right before COVID hit. And I moved back to Chattanooga from LA about a month into COVID. Jax and I were about 2 miles apart. We hired another person, Hunter, that we'll get on here at some point.
Big
hopefully. Big Hunter. And for a while in the middle of COVID, we were working out of my basement, which was
Coliseum, baby.
The Coliseum. I think it's where startup dreams are founded, but also, I mean, it was rough. Like we had to crowdsource all of our furniture from other offices that were shutting down. We were balling on a budget because hiring freezes hit for like 4 months, and we had like one role among 3 of us.
It was rough. That was a rough time, but it was really fun to do with you guys. I think that really grew us a lot.
Yeah,
in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
it was fun. Yeah, from scraping floors to going and getting and hustling chairs. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
we got office chairs, and they were all sold by the end of the week.
The flipper. But no, I think we could tell a ton of good stories from that. But what I thought was impactful for other businesses and teams is doing something outside of the routine of just the work to accomplish something together.
Yeah.
Like if it's as silly as scraping a floor or playing in a soccer tournament or helping one of your teammates move apartments, houses, whatever. Man. Going to get a margarita, like all those little things we've kind of lost a lot of in COVID with the whole remote thing. And I think you can still do it virtually by like having no agenda meetings and stuff. But
it's just harder.
I think that's a word to anyone that's growing a company, especially and building the culture. Like you have to do stuff that breaks the script, gets you out of your routine, and like makes you feel like you're accomplishing stuff together.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. The hardest part about remote work for me is not connecting with a team every day. Like, yes, I see them on Zoom, and that's great, and I love them. But it's like I love being with my people, right?
Yeah.
I loved being at your house every day and just getting to see my folks, whether it was, like you said, going to get lunch or the prayers in the morning that we did, or whatever it was. I thought that
Key and Peele. We used to watch
Key and Peele
every morning.
gosh. Oh, Key and Peele's so good. Shout out Key and Peele.
Great start
but that was every morning starting out with that was great. But it was just so good, and now I think a lot of people are so stuck in this remote world that we've lost so much connection that we think we love it because we're like, oh, we don't have to leave our offices. But you're losing so much value, I think, in just human interaction. And I just get so bored sitting inside all day. Like I work in sprints. I think sprints are fun. And then I'll call somebody or like call a friend or FaceTime. You know how I am with these FaceTimes. Yep. I'll just FaceTime you randomly. But I think that's what I miss a ton is just being with the guys or being with your team or being around folks or in a collaborative environment. Sitting at home and COVID, with this remote work stuff, everybody fell in love with, and now I'm just kind of over it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting trend. Like humans are fundamentally metaphysical beings. It matters to be in person.
Yeah.
But we've optimized for remote. Most tech companies have now. I think 90% of our roles, I know 100% of various roles are remote, right?
Yeah, our whole company is like pretty much built fully remote, and it works. We figured it out. And there's some people in Chattanooga. There's like 10 plus. We don't get together as often, but I would say that we definitely get together, and that's something that I'm happy. As a bigger company, it's harder to get everybody in one place, especially in a remote first company.
And plug for Very's doing really cutting edge IoT work, like really smart people doing really cool things in the IoT space.
It's unbelievable. Some of the stuff that I see, I'm like, how did this even get thought of? Like, how did you think of this? But it's so cool getting to connect with people that are seriously so opposite than me. Like, I feel like I'm creative, but they're creative, if that makes sense. So yeah, like what we're talking about with remote work and everything, I think that I just value being in front of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I shine best.
I got to ask you, well, one last thing on that. A lot of companies, even big tech people, like you've probably seen Elon's tweet storms, or like Google or, a bunch of different big tech companies are going back to on-site or remote hybrid.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Do you
Yeah,
think more companies will do that?
I think they will. I think it's smart to as well. I think remote hybrid is probably best because now it's like giving kid candy and then trying to take it back, right? It's like, here, Beckham, take your little sucker, and then like, oh, I took it away. It's like, here's remote work, but, oh, now you got to come back in. Everybody fell in love with this, right? And now everyone's going to leave because they're like, I get people all the time on interviews that are like, I'm only interested because it's fully remote. Well, that's great, but it's like, yeah, my company's making me go back into work. Well, that's what you were doing before. Why does it? So I think
here's my analogy that this came to mind. So Beckham, if he's like my daughter, watching YouTube in her room, has a snack, and I say, hey, we're going to have a family dinner at the table, home-cooked meal, sit around, no technology, and we're going to talk. She's going to roll her eyes. She's going to pout about it until she gets about 5 minutes into the meal. And then she's going to be like, this is amazing. Like, this food might not taste as good as the snack I had, the sucker, but it feels better for me. And, like, seeing my parents and talking to them about my day feels better than just watching YouTube.
Right.
So I feel like that's kind of it. Like, it takes a minute to shift into
I think so too.
mode.
And that's why I think that remote hybrid is probably the best bet. Like, give an option. Like, hey, there's companies that make you come in X amount of days a month.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of cool because you get to pick your days, let's say. Or they say, hey, come here on Wednesdays or whatever. But at least you get that interaction with your team and get everybody in at least some point. I wouldn't say I want to go in an office every day. I think that we're all adults, right? Like, if you can get it done, get it done. But I also think that team is a huge part of business in general, and collaboration, and when you're around people, you start feeding off energies, right? So I think that the hybrid is probably my favorite. Full remote, of course, is dandy, but I think that in order to grow your team and really get to know each other, you really got to see each other, because Zoom gets really – I see the same people sitting in the same seat with the same background every day, right? And that's cool, but I want to get to know who you are. Like, I feel like – it's like playing Xbox. Think of it this way. Volunteer Electric's calling. Probably didn't pay my bill or something.
One of those 22,000 emails.
Yeah, seriously. But, I think that, like, playing Xbox, right? You hear this guy. I met this dude on Xbox when I was a kid, and he had, like, a funny name, and we used to play Call of Duty all the time. I can't remember his name now. But we played, and for years and years and years, I never met the guy once. Never. This was back before Instagram, all this stuff. I just knew his voice, and I was like, what's up, dude? Man, it's my friend. Years go by, and I finally met this guy. He was coming through Chattanooga, and I was probably, 14 or 15 years old. My mom met him with me, and I was just like, oh, my God, you're a real person. This is the coolest thing ever. I thought he was going to be my best friend, and then, like, I never talked to him really again. But still, my point is like, holy crap, getting to see someone is so much better than just, like, hearing their voice or seeing them on Zoom. So. That was a long story to tell a very short thing, but there you go.
I was hoping that you're gonna remember his name and say,
I know.
Best friends,
I mean, this was like when you're in the lobbies of Call of Duty back in the day.
Man, I miss those days.
God.
All right, I have a couple last quick rapid fire questions. So one thing in technical recruiting that may be interesting for everyone. Oftentimes we get asked, "Do you know how to code? Can you technically qualify someone?" For like a software engineer. It's really tough.
Yeah, it is. It is tough.
For people without a computer science degree who haven't written code to be able to actually get into the weeds of it. Yeah. So how have you found the balance of not knowing how to code but assessing if someone is going to be a competent software engineer?
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on client facing or not too, right? So I think I'll say from my side, at Very, we're client facing. Like, we're a customer. You have to be able to talk to a customer and tell technical things in a non-technical way. So first thing I check for is comms, right? I want to make sure that you can communicate well. Obviously, being an engineer is part of it, but you have to have some side of a relationship and can talk to other people that might, like me, who don't know how to code and words like JavaScript. That sounds great, but I don't know how to do it, right? So walk me through. So what I try to do is dig into questions Like, walk me through the things that you use to develop software. I want to hear your, back end, front end, databases, etc. Tell me technical details of what you did, or I like to just really dig into the nitty gritty and not act like I know, but ask the questions that really give me an understanding of what they think it takes to do client services well and engineering well in general. Obviously, I think that's at least on my side of what I try to do is really dig into some questions, because you can hear, oh, I've done 8 years of JavaScript, and that sounds like a senior to me, right? But realistically, have they put it into practice? Have they led a team? Have they done all these different things that really play into a big factor? So
what I really liked what you said is the open-ended question. There's so many recruiters that'll read off a job description and be like, do you have 8 years of experience with Python?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes. Close-ended question, yes or no. You didn't learn anything.
Right.
You maybe they had that amount of experience. Very different than what you're saying, which is, hey, here's the problem that we're trying to solve. We're trying to use Python to, take data and make these, figure out these insights for the business. And tell me a story of when you've used Python. What was your role in this project? And tell me a story that you're proud of and what the outcome was.
Yeah.
And get them to walk through it and tell the story. We always say that stories are the most compelling things, and it's what you actually remember.
Right.
So you have to get the chance to tell stories, I think.
Yeah, storytelling is huge. Yeah, and especially in interviews. I like that question that is one of my interview questions. It's like, walk me through all the tools that you use to develop software. Cool. Then we go on to talking about, tell me about a time where you, a technical story, right? That you either led a team or a project that you were on, and what you were trying to solve. And tell me the technical details of what you did and why you were proud of it. That's what I want to. The very first question of my interviews is like, of course, I want to hear about you, right? We started off conversational, but it gets into what sets you apart from other people that are applying to this role. So that's like, oh God, that's the first question. It's you have to reflect. And I think that gets them to really open up. Okay, I've had people be like, I have no earthly idea. Okay, well you got to really sit back and tell me. I'm here all day. Tell me what you want to hear. I mean, tell me not what I want to hear, but tell me what you think about yourself.
Yeah. It's really good shift that's happening in recruiting the past 5 years, from inbound recruiting, where traditionally the job search was you go to a careers page, you apply, and then you expect the HR person to really interview you, and you have to impress them. Yeah. Versus recruiting now it's outbound, right? Most good technical talent, software engineers aren't looking. They aren't going to be applying, and oftentimes career pages aren't updated and are a black box. You're going into an applicant tracking system that's going to screen you out based on keywords on your resume. It's rough. And so I think that now with this outbound trend of recruiting, recruiters that reach out to you, that land in your inbox, that schedule the call, 9 times out of 10 are going to have some commission or bonus tied to you getting hired. Yeah. And they are all for best representing you to their company or client. Yeah. And so the more ammo you can give them to really help them understand what you're good at, it's a totally different mindset than I need to really be cautious about what I say because I'm interviewing. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, another thing too is talk about failures. Another thing that we ask is what do you think you're going to struggle with the most in this role? And then tell me what you think the plan of attack is to make it easier for you. What's your plan of attack for to make whatever you think is going to be difficult better? Yeah. That's another one. So
we could talk about this all day. I think we'll have you back.
Come on, have me back.
We'll have you as a co-host, something fun. Yeah. But yeah, Jaxon, thank you for being such a big part of my recruiting story. It's been a blast.
Heck yeah. I wouldn't be here without you, so this has been fun, dude. Yeah. I'm happy that we're here. That's awesome. My guy.
We'll be back in the arena. Appreciate it.